So students, in the previous class, you came to know the differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Let me repeat it once again. What are the differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics? Microeconomics is derived from the Greek word micros, which means small, whereas macroeconomics is derived from the Greek word macros, which means large. Microeconomics is that branch of economics which deals with the behavior of individual economic units, whereas macroeconomics is that branch of economics in which we study about the entire economy. आयुषी, आप सभी म्यूट कर लें अपने स्पीकर को. The central problem of microeconomics is of price determination, whereas the central problem of macroeconomics is of income and employment determination. The central problem of microeconomics, that is of price determination, is solved on the basis of demand and supply, whereas the central problem of macroeconomics, which is of income and employment determination, is solved on the basis of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. The other name for microeconomics is price theory, whereas the alternative name of macroeconomics is theory of income and employment. Some of the examples of microeconomics are individual income, individual output, whereas the examples of macroeconomics are national income, national output, etc. Your next topic was interrelationship between microeconomics and macroeconomics. How microeconomics and macroeconomics are interrelated. Both the branches of economics, that is microeconomics and macroeconomics, are interrelated and interconnected. How? Microeconomics depends on macroeconomics. Micro variables depends on the behavior of macro variables. The decisions at the lower level, at the individual level, gets influenced by the decision which are taken at the economy level or at the national level. I repeat, both microeconomics and macroeconomics are interrelated and interdependent. How? Firstly, microeconomics depends on macroeconomics. Microeconomic variables depends on the behavior of macroeconomic variables. The decisions which are taken at the individual level are influenced by the decisions which are taken at the economy level or at the national level. As for example, if at the national level a decision is made related to tax, a decision is made that tax rate will be increased. This decision is being made at the national level, at the economy level. At the national level, at the economy level, at the broader level, decision has been made to increase the tax rate. It will have a definite impact on individuals' decision. With rise in tax rates, there will be a rise in price, and which will influence individuals' demand for goods and services. Thus, we can say that whatever decisions are taken at the national level, those decisions have an impact on the decision which are taken at the individual level. Thus, we can make a conclusion that microeconomics depends on macroeconomics. Secondly, macroeconomics depends on microeconomics. Macro variables depends on the behavior of micro variables. That is, whatever decisions are taken at the broader level, at the economy level, at the national level, those decisions are influenced by the decisions which are taken at the individual level. Suppose if individuals decide to save more, then it will have a definite impact on nation's saving. The nation's saving will increase. If individual income increases, it have an impact on national income. With increase in individual's income, national income will also increase. So we can make a conclusion that macro variables are influenced by micro variables. Once again, I repeat this. I said that macro variables depends on the behavior of micro variables. Whatever decisions are taken at the economy level, at the national level, those decisions are influenced by the decisions which are taken at the individual level. As for example, if there is rise in individual income, it will have a definite impact on national income. The national income of the economy will rise. So we can make a conclusion that macroeconomics depends on the behavior of microeconomics. Your next topic is micro-macro paradox. Micro-macro paradox. The micro-macro paradox states that what is logical at the micro level may not be logical at the macro level. Micro-macro paradox states that what is logical at the micro level may not be logical at the macro level. The things which are correct at the smaller level, it is not compulsory that those things will also be correct at the macro level, at the broader level. As for example, if an individual saves, if an individual increases his saving, it will be beneficial for him and his family in the future. But what will happen if all the individuals in the economy start saving more? It will have an adverse impact on the economy. Now the question arises, how it will have an adverse impact on the economy? If all the individuals in the economy start saving more at the same time, then it means that they are spending less. When you are saving, when as an individual you are saving more, it means that you are spending less. You are spending less, it means that you are demanding less, and there will be fall in demand. With fall in demand, there will be a gradual fall in production. With fall in production, there will be fall in employment, leading to an ultimate fall in national income. Thus, things that were appropriate, that were correct at the smaller level, are not correct at the broader level, at the national level. I said that macro paradox states that what is logical at the micro level may not be logical at the macro level. Things which are correct, appropriate at the smaller level, it is not compulsory that those things will also be correct, will be appropriate at the national level. For example, if an individual increases his saving, it will be good for him and his family in the future. But what will happen if all the individuals in the economy start saving more at the same time? If all the individuals in the economy start saving more, it shows that there will be fall in expenditure. With fall in expenditure, there will be fall in demand for goods and services. With fall in demand for goods and services, there will be fall in production, leading to fall in employment and income. And a fall in income had an adverse impact on the economy. Thus, we can conclude that the thing that was appropriate at the smaller level, at the individual level, is not appropriate, is not correct at the broader level, at the national level. This is what macro paradox is all about. Your next topic is positive economics and normative economics. Positive economics and normative economics. Economics can also be divided as positive economics and normative economics. Now the question is, what does positive economics and normative economics mean? Economics can also be divided as positive economics and normative economics. The question is, what does positive economics and normative economics mean? Let's start with positive economics. Positive economics, the supporters of positive economics were Adam Smith, Professor Lionel Robbins, etc. Positive economics deals with things as they are. Positive economics can be statistically verified as these are based on facts. Positive economics are not suggestive in nature. They deal with realistic situations. They can be verified as true or false. I said, positive economics, the supporters of positive economics were Adam Smith, Lionel Robbins, etc. Positive economics deals with things as they are. Positive economics can be statistically verified as they are based on facts. They are not suggestive in nature. They deal with realistic situation and they can be stated as true or false. As positive economics, positive economics gets the other way of dividing economics is as positive economics and normative economics. Earlier you have learned that economy has two branches, microeconomics and macroeconomics. We can also divide economics as positive economics and normative economics. इससे पहले आप सबों को बताया गया था कि इकोनॉमिक्स के दो ब्रांचेस हैं, माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स और मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स. इसके अलावा भी इकोनॉमिक्स को और हम दो अलग कैटेगरी में बांट सकते हैं, वो है पॉजिटिव इकोनॉमिक्स एंड नॉर्मेटिव इकोनॉमिक्स. द सपोर्टर्स ऑफ पॉजिटिव इकोनॉमिक्स वेर एडम स्मिथ, प्रोफेसर लियोनेल रॉबिन्स, etc. Positive economics deals with things as they are. Positive statements can be statistically verified as they are based on some facts. They can be proved on the basis of data. They are never suggestive in nature. They do not provide any sort of suggestion. The positive statements can be stated as true or false. Example, there is poverty in India. It's a fact, and this fact can be proved with the help of data. With the help of data, we can prove that this fact is correct. Hence, it's an example of positive economics. There is poverty in India. This statement can be stated as true or false. Not just it can be stated as true or false, but it can be proved on the basis of data. Hence, it's an example of positive economics. Another example, $1 can be exchanged for 30 rupees. $1 can be exchanged for 30 rupees. This statement can also be stated as true or false. This statement is false, and it can be proved with the help of data. Hence, it's an example of positive economics. While explaining you the meaning of positive economics, I stated that the supporters of positive economics were Adam Smith, Professor Lionel Robbins, etc. Positive economics deals with things as they are. Positive statements can be statistically verified, as these statements are based on facts. They are never suggestive in nature. The positive statements can be stated as true or false. Example, there is poverty in India. This statement is true. And not just it is true, but we can say that this statement is true on the basis of facts. Hence, it's an example of positive economics. $1 can be exchanged for rupees 30. This statement is false, and it can be proved on the basis of data, on the basis of relevant information. We can prove this fact. Hence, it's an example of positive economics. Speaking about normative economics, the supporters of normative economics were Professor Alfred Marshall, Pigot, Hicks, etc. The supporters of normative economics were Professor Alfred Marshall, Pigot, Hicks, etc. Normative economics deals with or tells us what ought to be. Normative economics tells us how economic problems should be solved. It deals with idealistic situation, but not with realistic situation. And normative statements cannot be statistically verified. I said that the supporters of normative economics were Professor Alfred Marshall, Pigot, Hicks, etc. Normative economics tells us what ought to be. Normative economics tells us how economic problems are solved, how economic problems should be solved. Normative economics deals with idealistic situations, but not with realistic situations. The normative statements cannot be statistically verified, as they are not based on any facts. Once again, I repeat, normative economics, the supporters of normative economics were Professor Alfred Marshall, Pigot, Hicks, etc. Normative economics deals with what ought to be. Normative economics tells us how economic problems should be solved. Normative economics deals with idealistic situation, but not with realistic situation. The normative statements cannot be statistically verified as true or false, as they are not based on any relevant data. Some of the examples of normative economics are: India should take steps to control rising prices. India should take steps to control the rising prices. Inequalities should be reduced. All these are just suggestions so as to solve the economic problems. They are not realistic situation and they cannot be verified with the help of any data. Hence, they are a part of normative economics. Once again, I repeat the examples. India should take steps to control rising prices. Income inequalities should be reduced. Here, we are giving just suggestions how to solve the economic problems. And those suggestions, those statements cannot be statistically verified as correct or incorrect, as they are not based on any facts. So they are a part of normative economics. With this, we come to an end of your introduction chapter. In the introduction part, you came to know the meaning and definitions of economics, branches of economics, meaning of microeconomics, its examples, importance, emergence of macroeconomics, its meaning with examples, and different macroeconomic sectors. Apart from that, you also came to know about factors of production. Thereafter, you were made to know the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics, the interrelationship between microeconomics and macroeconomics, micro-macro paradox, positive economics and normative economics. Let me give you a briefing about this introduction chapter. Firstly, starting from the meaning of economics. Economics is all about making choices in the backdrop of scarcity. In the words of Adam Smith, economics is the science of wealth. Whereas Professor Lionel Robbins defined economics as: economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. There are two branches of economics: microeconomics and macroeconomics. Speaking about microeconomics, microeconomics is that branch of economics in which we study about individual economic units, such as the demand for a commodity, supply of a commodity, price determination of a commodity, income of an individual, etc. What are the importance of microeconomics? Microeconomics as a subject helps us in knowing the decision process of both producers and consumers in an economy. Microeconomics as a subject is helpful in knowing the decision process of producers and consumers in an economy. Microeconomics helps us in efficient utilization of scarce resources which can be put to alternative uses. Microeconomics helps in efficient utilization of limited resources those limited resources which can be put to alternative uses. On the basis of microeconomics, economic policies are framed to promote the welfare of the masses. Next, macroeconomics. Macroeconomics as a subject emerged after the worldwide depression of 1929. Macroeconomics for the first time was discussed in Professor J.M. Keynes' book. That book was titled as A General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. That book was published in the year 1936. We also call Professor J.M. Keynes as father of modern macroeconomics. Now, what is macroeconomics? Macroeconomics is that branch of economics in which we study about the entire economy, such as the national income of an economy, aggregate demand in an economy, aggregate supply, total employment, total unemployment, etc. What are the importance of macroeconomics? Macroeconomics as a subject helps us to know about the economy as a whole. Macroeconomics as a subject helps us in knowing about the entire economy. Macroeconomics as a subject helps us to know about the entire economy. Macroeconomics as a subject helps in economic policy formulation. And lastly, macroeconomic parameters such as national income, aggregate demand, total saving, total employment, etc. On the basis of these parameters, we compare our country with other countries of the world. Next, macroeconomic sectors. There are 4 macroeconomic sectors. First, households. Households are the owners of factors of production. They are the ones who provide these factors of production to the firms. They are the ones who purchase the produced goods and services from the firms. What are firms? Firms refer to economic units